Oh.
Friends, Romans, and countrymen, lend me both your ears. Charlie, bring that down just a hair. Thank you, sir. Monday night, you're listening to the George Espenlaub Show, coming to you live from the Funny Farm. Yep, at a place called Orwell. It's a whole lot safer here than it is in your world. We invite you to come in, sit back, prop your feet up, because we've got a thrilling show tonight and a topic that is so relevant. Everyone should be listening to this tonight. I'll be back in just 1 minute. In fact, before you sit down, get up and tap your feet, snap your fingers, bob your head, and shake your booty a little bit, just to get loosened up. You know what I'm saying? All right, Charlie, bringing the music down for us. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you. I would be lost without Charlie. Thank you, Charlie. And I thank you, Charlie. There we are. All right. Woo! We wondered what happened, but we're all right now. We're all right. All right. What you see scrolling down across the bottom there, ladies and gentlemen, is a blog post or a podcast post. It's a combination of everything. You can go there. It is so neat. I spent, I don't know how long on there this afternoon. It is educationpost.org/network/Christina Laster. And Christina writes blogs on there, and there's some podcasts that she's on there. So check that out. Our guest tonight is Christina Laster, all the way from California. Isn't modern isn't modern technology, Christina?
It's great, right? I get to talk to you guys from sunny California.
She's in
Thanks for
sunny
having me.
California, and we're in slower, lower Delaware. That's what they say around here. We're in slower, lower Delaware. So from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean and all points in between. Wow. Christina,
Uh-huh.
tell us tell us a little bit about yourself, where you've been, what you've done, and what you're doing now.
Okay, well, I was originally born and raised in San Diego, where I went and received my elementary, secondary, post-secondary, and graduate degrees from. And so, I moved into which was Riverside County. Before I moved there, I used to work for the San Diego Unified School District as an early childhood paraeducator and a special education tech. And so I spent 13 years in San Diego doing that. I didn't move my family, relocate, into another county. As my kids entered into the public schools there, I started various problems that I knew were not okay, especially being a previous educator in that space. Advocate on behalf of my children, but the more that I advocated, the more pushback I received, and so finally, I decided that was not the platform for my children. I was going to homeschool them, and from all of the things that were taking place in that space, educated effectively anyway. As a parent, concerned about various things, that it wasn't just about my kids, it was also about other kids. So when my son had experienced some really horrific things in the elementary school, other parents were saying, your son is being treated, and our kids are coming home and reporting these things, and the teachers using him as a model for harsh. They have anxiety about what's going to happen with your son. There was a couple of parents that went to go about it in the school. The superintendent's office basically told them, it's not your kid, mind your business. That it was like I became a mama bear, like, this is not okay. Is harming these other kids that are watching my kid. Education should be about. Again, seek out civil rights organizations, one being the NAACP. I joined the organization, started to see more and more things that were taking place in that area, started helping people advocate for their kids, and then eventually was appointed as the education chair for the region for the NAACP. And so now I do that, and I also, nationally, civil rights advocacy and activism all over, from California all the way to the South in New Orleans, South Carolina, Wisconsin, you name it. Everything in helping parents understand what education should look like, what it does look like, and what their choices are.
When your son, excuse me, when your son was going through this, how long ago was that?
My son is 8 years old, and so he is in third grade. So if you can imagine, from kindergarten to second grade, he experienced the worst tragedies in his life as a little boy at school.
Mm.
They tried to suck the soul out of my son.
And so when other parents went before the administrators, they said, mind your own business. This isn't your kid. Blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And not only that, but when I confronted the teacher about her use of harsh tactics, for instance, there was a Charlie Brown movie. When my son was in first grade, he had the teacher that started this whole system of harsh punishment to him. and the stigmas and the labels that went with it, to where the kids didn't even want to play with him. There was a Charlie Brown that day party. My son's chair, she turned it to face the wall while the other kids got to watch the movie. He was only 6 years old.
Hmm. Was there anything done in behalf of your son?
No, everyone protected from the to the principal. They tried to my son by saying that he deserved these harsh punishments. One day from school, like, I'm trying to do the right thing, mommy, but they took away everything from me. And I said, well, what happened? And he said that he was forced to pick up trash during recess time while other kids. Was this the we have the highway patrol Caltrans system where people get punished them and pick up trash off the side of the freeway. So why is my son perimeters of the playground while playing, laughing, and having a great time, and he's picking up trash?
Did they ever explain to you why your son was picked out?
They would never admit to any son by second grade the difference between him and other children. And he started to say, treated this way because I'm brown and they're not. The teacher's always nice to all the account, but she treats me bad because I'm brown. And so in grade, my son started saying he's dead, and I had to take him to a therapist. And I have over just minute details, like he was diagnosed with diabetes. And the just said, Daniel has to have whole grain, basically no preservatives. Like, he couldn't have prepackaged food. It had to be fresh, right? And so he had to have those types of things, and limited sugar, but a certain amount of proteins and carbs. So at the school, when I handed them the meal accommodation, they think give you something special for your kid. And this was on a legally binding 504 documented form that the doctors fill out. The kids are supposed to be federally protected or have a diagnosis that ability, and they just kind of like me over the meal accommodations. And I was like, his own, I bring his own food. But it's sad that people have to 61% whole grain bread and no preservatives. Like, are you trying to poison these on?
Ladies and gentlemen, and I have said this so many times. Let me put some of these up here while I'm lip dripping here. I have said this so many times, and I think you know this gentleman right here,
Hi,
Christina. And then there's our friend Scott, and here's
hello.
Miss Cheryl West,
Hey.
and Cassandra's response to what you were saying. And then she said their actions were not acceptable at all.
Yeah.
Let me put this up real quick here, because we launched off of what you just said. And I have said countless times, this subject that we're talking about is so relevant for today. Lose our kids, we lost the nation.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Bottom line, end of story. What I want to touch on is this, Christina, and let me put this up here, because, ladies and gentlemen, the fight is not Christina's alone, or Ed Temple's alone, or Jorge Gill, or any other school choice advocate. It's not their fight alone. It's the
Nope.
grassroots. It's where the boots hit the ground. It's the sidewalks that the kids walk every day. It's the school where your kids go every day. It's the environment that they're in every day. This fight is your fight. Me as a
Yes.
grandfather, you as parents, guardians, whoever. This is our fight. Unless we do something, it's down the tubes. See you later. Turn out the lights. The party's over. Period. I want to put this up,
Yeah.
Christina. I showed it to you before. Voltaire, Google him. He was an agnostic. Uh, he was anti God until the very end. But this is what he said: it is dangerous to be right in matters on which the established authorities are wrong. I want that to sink in. It is dangerous to be right in matters on which the established authorities are wrong. Christina, would you like to elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So, talking tradition, I'm going to use this as the example because that's what I fight. Extra branch of government, right? And we see traditional public education and another branch of government. So when you go into the deal, go to the state office, the social services department, right? And that's the level of fight you're going to get for them to actually educate your kids. And so I literally was going against the grain to expect that the people that had the monopoly, right? They have the monopoly. The state has the monopoly, and that's because we right them. This is what you need to do, and it's something that they wanted to do. They had the fight time. There was just this opposition for them to do anything right. And when I began to fight, the more they sent more people out to fight against me, right? And so there's a danger in that, just being vocal and advocating for best practices for kids, because all they do is instead of doing your opponent, become what happens is because they become exhausted. You just relent, but I think that now they are second with, because not gonna succumb to your bad practices. Now, another thing is that's for the other kids that I advocate for, because those failing traditional government run schools, willing to do what's right no matter what. About our kids are far from, they talk around the kids, they talk about the kids, but they don't speak directly into the kid's life. And so it's a lifeless situation in a Machiavellian world, right? And so anyway, um basically when I'm outside of that platform, big bucks attached to the traditional environment, I take a lot of hits. I saw that there was by someone in my life, right? I doesn't know me. I'm fighting for Black children and parents, right? And I take hits, all kinds of stuff that are not, oh, she's getting paid by the Koch brothers. Well, you know what? I care about kids. And so willing to is place with, and you're unrelenting in that message, you will post all the time and insert in it, because us, they want to censor us.
Christina, if I might, right about here, could I add uh, some biblical principles to this thing real quick? Men and women, boys
Please
and girls
do.
everywhere in this country need to understand. Now, I'm a firm believer that there are biblical principles that are principles. I don't care what you do.
Right.
Stand on your head, clap your feet, climb a tree upside down, put the sneakers on the wrong feet. It doesn't matter. You are
Mhm.
not going to change those biblical principles. They were ordained by God, and that's the way they are. You might not like it, jump up and down, spin around, spit sideways, do whatever you want, but you will not change godly principles that's founded through His Word. We need to understand and when you said about how they come against you, they got the big bucks. They got the character assassination crew out there cruising, trolling, looking to see who they can take
Mhm.
down that's getting in the way. We need to remember we don't fight against flesh and blood. We fight against principalities and powers, spiritual wickedness in high places. And
Right.
the sooner, yes, the sooner that we get this in our head, that this is a battle for the mind and it comes from an
Mhm.
enemy, the better off we'll be. I'm sorry I started lip dripping, but
No, it's okay because, I always say, let God be true and every man a liar, right? And so
that's
that's
right.
what keeps me unrelenting because I'm delivering the truth. And I know the gates of hell won't prevail over the church, the body, the ecclesia. And so to me, it's like, okay, I'm going to keep just like the prophets said, and you come what go, right? Because there are satanic W's holding hostage over their minds, right? Trying to get them while they're young. Pharaoh, right? The spirit of Molech. You guys are
Mhm.
wicked. You want to sacrifice our kids. And so the more that I come out, I'm like, no, I will not relent. I'm the word. This is the truth of what's happening in these classrooms all across America, right? And so we have to be, challenged. I see Melissa's comment. That's why I'm now right, Melissa. Ultimately, I determined that I could not change their behavior, but I was going to change minds. And so I homeschool my kids now too. And I teach other parents how how their own kids. Deuteronomy 6 says that it's our responsibility to educate our own kids. And so that is what I do. And I teach other parents. But this is a problem that people need to understand is urgent. We're no emergency when we're talking about the battle for our kids' minds. So much taking place that it's disturbing, but we have to fight back. We have to.
I I watch people. I've raised my wife and I have 51 years. Have raised 4 kids. We have 11 grandkids and 3 great grandkids. Now, the generation, and I know people say, "Oh, there goes the old guy again talking about way back then." But the generation that I was raised in, back in the 50s and early 60s, when I went to school, was a whole lot different than it is today. Little by little, we left the barn door open until all of a sudden somebody forgot to put the bridle on the horse and the horse ran out the barn doors and he's been running wild ever since. I want to put this up for us, Christina, if I might, as soon as I find the right spot here. I put it up before on other shows. I think everybody should have this thing printed off and carry it with them. How to Create a Social State by Saul Alinsky. Now he's been dead since 1972. He took the page right out of Vladimir Lenin's communist book. 8 levels of control that must be obtained before you are able to create a social state. And it goes on: healthcare, poverty, debt, gun control, welfare, education. Take control of what people read and listen to. Take control of what children learn in school. And the seventh one: remove the belief in God from the government and schools. If that doesn't sound like it's taken right out of a page of today's news and headlines, I don't know what is. Take control of the education. Get their minds. Get their minds. Bring them down. Bring them down. Don't let them think as an individual. Tell them what to think. How do you find, uh, and I know all teachers aren't bad, uh, not all public schools are bad, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. But how do you find, do you have to deal with teachers' unions sometime when you advocate?
Well, that you say that because meeting where I advocating on behalf of my son, the teacher said enter the meeting with Miss Laster without my union rep. We're talking about your 504 meeting, right? Why do you need your union rep? And I didn't invite any guests. I wouldn't allow the meeting to be conducted. Why do you need my kid? And what I will do is I'll come back with the lawyer. And so that's what I did. So you can have as many union reps as you want. I'm going to have my lawyer speak on you. And that's basically what I did. Something that the average daily attending student's parent is not going to know. So when they walk into that meeting, you have 12 people, like it's the Supreme Court. And all they're doing is fight. I'm just looking for, why I have to be in a trial just to get the services supports that my kid needs. We're talking about minute things, and they will fight you over them. And it seemed to me that you take the most vulnerable population, which is students, fight their parents that way, where they walk into a room full of ed thugs and ed gangsters, right? Who are only there to oppose and bully them out of their services. And how do you treat population of people that way? That means, so yeah, there was a person, that union rep, I denied that, canceled the meeting, and put down that, please write an official documentation that the union rep was not invited, not welcome at my meeting for my son, and that this information is not disclosable to the union rep, period. The union rep doesn't work with my kid.
Now, there might be some that says, well, Christina, you're out there in California, and I'm over here in Texas, or I'm up here in Maine, or some other portion of the country, and things like that don't happen around where I'm at. What would you say?
Well, for one, I have not heard of anyone say that it doesn't happen where they're at with regards to students. So that would actually shock me if that'd be a miracle, and I would be thankful that someone's not abusing the special needs students, right? However, I don't think we could search high and low and find that situation. But if we see that there's just this hierarchy of things that take place in the traditional school setting, we can look at the data. And so the way that the special needs students are treated is egregious. And right above the special needs students, you see that the Black students are they're treated like, right? So worse than human dignity and respect. So we look at those national averages, we look at the local averages, and there is a pattern and a history that shows that there's just means and ways of another evil that people have, right? So my question always is, who is your neighbor? Who is your neighbor? said, fighting for what's right. And if I see my brother or sister or someone else being harmed in an exploitative way or an oppressive way, then it is my duty and my obligation to help free that person from that system of oppression.
We talked on the phone last week about, and I call them talking heads. And we see it every day. We have pundits on the news, on the cable news, 24/7, and it's like an old song, like an old rock and roll song when I was a kid. Yakety yak, don't talk back. Yakety yak, don't talk back. But it's talking heads, talking heads, talking heads. I'm all for talking. I'm all for a dialogue. But when it just goes on and on, you know what I'm saying? It goes on and nobody moves. I'm for, okay,
Right.
let's talk about it. Let's find the solution and let's put the boots on the ground and get things going. How do you feel about that?
For one, I think that school choice has offered me and other parents like me a solution, so we know what somebody asks us, right? And people are always, again, like they do to the kids, talking around us, talking about us, and talking through us pretty much, but no one is really listening. Why? Because then that would basically dismantle their monopoly. Okay, their control, their system of control. It's institutionalized, exploitation we're looking at. And so you can have a factory model, a uniform system of education that does not support all modalities of learning. I don't care how many figures they put together to try to say, oh, it does. No, it does not. You cannot possibly serve every learning style and one uniform system. So basically, we're looking at communism is worse than socialism, right? And so you can't do that. And when we say we works, and we know we have the proof is in the pudding. California has charter schools, right? They're held under. If they don't perform, they get shut down. Well, how come the traditional government-run schools aren't shut down for not performing, right? They're not even held to the same standards. So they're talking fluent hypocrisy and blasphemy about what isn't working. And, oh, we're going to use this model. And that's not even something that is probably likely to work either. But guess what? We can spend trillions of dollars now saying this is what's going to work. And then at the end of the 10 years, everyone's more messed up than they were 10 years before. So why don't we talk about what is working, talk to the parents who it's their kid, and find out from the parents. And I'm not talking about the parents they monopolize on, because they have a group of parents that'll say, oh yeah, the traditional government runs schools. Yeah, maybe you're in that very slim bunch. But we're talking about what's in the trend. Half of these talking go on with these pretty packaged, how people celebrate Halloween. Go out and get these pillowcases full of candy, come home, eat a whole bunch of candy, collapse from a sugar high, and then they wake up the next day with a headache. Like, what did I just do? Right? So I have to be making informed and not get a sugar rush when we hear these things being said, because know that the majority of it is not going to take place. If it sounds too good to be true, don't believe it. They've never even met us in the trenches.
Did I read, was it you or I read so much sometimes I get confused. In fact, I spend half my life confused anymore. But anyways, there was some schools in a certain district, and they were given a failing grade, and the superintendent was given a Porsche or rewarded for failing school. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, you read that correctly. So basically, in San Diego, which is my hometown, or like I said in the beginning, the superintendent, preferably academically, but with regards to harsh punishments, right? And any that she can talk about, I'm making progress, are very slim, very, very small, which, I don't know, the data could be inflated. I don't trust anybody. They'll say what they want when I know there are people suffering. And as a matter of fact, I talk to parents there all the time, and their students aren't doing, their situations have not been responded to by that district. Just things happen in what we would call different. So we're talking about District E. Well, their report card is horrible. As a matter of fact, on the schools to avoid. San Diego Unified School District has schools to avoid for 2020, right, and beyond. And this person not only gets praised at the state level, but then gets promoted. And then the parents are like, yeah, she got a brand new Porsche too. And I'm like, guys, what about that just want to and our children, and you're making strides in your personal life, but these kids are trapped in cyclical failure. Their parents are trying to get them out. They're doing everything they can. So I can't say that the parents aren't active or involved, which is another false narrative, because I've watched parents be involved, but they get opposed. Yeah, she got promoted.
What are does California have school choice, or is it very limited, or none at all? Here in Delaware, let me tell you what we have. We have school choice, but it's only the words school choice.
Mm,
You can take your child out of this district and put them in the other district, and the money will follow the student. Or you can take them out of that district and put them in another district, and the money will follow the student. But that's as far as it goes. You have you have if someone wants to send their kid to a private Christian school, you're on your own. Yeah, you take them out, you send them there, you pay for it, you're on your own. I talked with a representative several months ago, and we got kind of down to the nuts and bolts because, uh, and I made the statement about, well, why don't you do something? You're our district representative. Why don't you do something? Well, we couldn't get anyone to vote on such and such. And I said, so what? Your car's broke down sitting at the bottom of the yard, and well, I couldn't get anything done with it. So you're going to let it sit there. It's broke. You're not going to try to fix it. Well, and it all ended up like this, Christina. I said about the public school system. We were talking about the public school system. And he made the statement, and I'll paraphrase. He said, if we would do that, what I was suggesting, the public school system would crash.
mm-hmm.
And I said, in my own cynical old man way, I said, oh, isn't that too bad? Maybe it needs to crash and burn and start this thing all over again under some good principles. When you talk to politicians, what do you come up against?
That that government run schools and school choice are taking away from the traditional government run schools dollars, not a, and so their whole thing is looking
Mhm.
at fiscal impact, right? And trying to make sure that their pensions are paid, but it's not, it shouldn't be done on the back of our kids, because if you are doing it on the back of our kids, that's like trying to have them solve the national debt crisis. Like, is it up to our kids to carry that burden? they're paying. They're eventually going to be paying into it and exploit them that one of our kids educated and be able to solve some of these debt crises, but you don't do it on their backs, right? And don't even educate them. That's like you're taking average daily attending student funds and you're not even educating them. So in any other business, if they fail, you can either get a refund. If you buy something and you don't like it, you can get a refund, right? But they're definitely, you go to a restaurant, you order something, it wasn't to your liking, you can complain about it. They're not going to blame you. Okay. The government run school is the only business that fails the students, blames them and their parents, and then gets more funding.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we talk about school choice, and for Delaware, I would advise that movie that I just watched this weekend. It was amazing with Virginia Walden Ford. Her story, it's called Miss Virginia, and it showed how the community and parents came together and fought for an alternative to the cyclical goal. And what you're talking about is not choice. It is a defer, right? So gate and magnet and district choice. But if you ask the people at the district, oh yeah, we got choice here, you want to transfer? No, that's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking school. Donna has ESA, which is a student spending account, savings account, vouchers, whatever works. I know that there's people that are looking at vouchers here, but in California, currently we only have the, of course, private traditional government run schools and public charter schools. So those are our options. People are always looking at give that access and opportunity to more children and more families.
When you decided to homeschool your children and you took them out of the public school system, almost said public sewer system. I mean public school system. When you took them out of the public school system, sometimes Espenlaub, he just says the wrong thing. But anyhow,
that's okay.
When you decide to take them out of the system,
right?
Did you have the opportunity to have any kind of financial backing, or it was like, okay, take them, be gone, you foot the bill?
That's the difficulty and the challenge in me protecting my kid, me being directly with them, is because I'm a single parent and I am looking for ways to educate my kids, but then at the same time I have to provide for them. And so thankfully my dad was a homeschool parent as well, and he homeschooled my younger 4 siblings, and so he was more than willing to take up arms and help out with that. So he helps me from time to time, my mom, and so I relied upon and that's what some parents need, but sanctuary spaces for the kids that are being failed and harmed. Tons of parents that I've been willing with and say, hey, how can I help you? Like, figure out ways that you could do this. Is no financial backing for me and help volunteer my time. I will go. And so, but my Father in heaven is rich, and so he will. I just dedicate my life and my time to helping people. Honestly, there is no really finance, but the public charter schools are free. Wanted to utilize the public charter schools to have my kids go there than me. I know many a great public charter schools here in California that, you know, are do amazing things. My
Oh, we lost
Okay,
you.
I'm sorry about
There
that.
you
We heard right now the wind's blowing, and so my connection was not too stable. I apologize.
You're all right now. Go ahead.
Okay, so what part did you miss?
When you talk to parents, now I imagine, because people's people, I don't care. I've been three-quarters of the way around the world, and I found out I don't care who you are, where you come from. People are people. Uh,
Right.
you know. So when you there's probably two or three sets of different people that you talk to when you get in on this issue. Uh, you you
Mhm.
got those people that says, yes, we want to do something. I want help. Show me, teach me, uh, sign me up. My boots will hit the ground when you tell me. Then you got the second people, the second part of the people that says, well, uh, my kids are going to school, and school to them a lot of times is just a big daycare. Okay,
Yeah, social,
yeah,
the social,
yeah.
yeah.
The kids are out of my hair. They're in school, and blah 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 blah. And then you got the third group of people that says, well, I'm not really sure I want to cause these waves, and uh, they can get pretty mean and they can come after you. So
Mhm.
that's the three groups of people that I picture in my mind that I come across a lot of times. Uh, what do you say to these three groups of people? I mean, the ones that really want to get in on the fight and are ready to hit the ground and do whatever they need to do to get this thing done. That's one thing. What about the other two groups? The ones that just say, well,
So,
no.
yeah, there's a misconception about homeschool children where people think that our kids are not going to be socialized, right? And half of the stuff that some of the kids are learning, I don't want my kids around anyway, first of all. So
Yeah.
that's one dynamic, right? What does socialization look like? Because my kids are always doing things that are social and healthy, right? And so we talk about that. For the most part, I get parents that complain about their kids picking up bad habits and bad behaviors at the traditional school environments where those types of behaviors run rampant, and people just, intend to, out of habit, they create behaviors like their friends, in order to get along, whatever. So with those particular parents, I just explained to them the risks of having that type of social environment, and that they only get one chance to raise this kid, right? And so you got to do it right. You got to do it right, because what impacts them now will definitely show up and affect them later in life. And you can be hindering your kid more than you're helping them. And so you need to be making sure that you are doing the absolute best thing for your child possible. Also, I talked to them about where their child is at as far as grade level. Is your child at a deficit? Because if your child's at a deficit, that gap is just going to grow and grow and grow. And again, they only get K through 12 one chance. So either you want the kid living with you forever, or you want to make them successful, right? And let's work on utilizing that time in the best way to make them successful. Now, there is a group of people, like you said, the other group, that they're just a little bit afraid of being out there and taking hits. Like, nobody is willing to come out and say, hey, I'm Christina Laster tomorrow. I'm gonna take her hits for her, but that's okay. So what I do is I teach them that, look, you know, this is your kid. Okay. You're gonna take hits either way. Either you're gonna take hits by having your kid in the district because they're fighting you anyway,
Right.
you know, or you're gonna take the opposition by doing the right thing. So what would you rather do? You can't be afraid to stand up and speak for your kid and do what's right, because they're depending on your actions and your voice to do that for them. They can't externalize in a great way what is happening to them. So for example, if your kid is sick every day that you drop them off at school, they shouldn't be there. That's a toxic environment for them. If they're biting their nails, pulling their hair out, crying when they come home, just that my high schoolers that I go visit, they're falling asleep right after school and they say, Miss Laster, we got to wake up and do this all over again tomorrow. Well, what kind of life is that? No wonder, there's some suicidal ideations, right? And so I talk to parents about, what do you want the quality of life for your child to look like? You want them to be barely surviving, or would you like to see them thriving? And I'd rather watch my kid thrive than to barely survive. So in that, there is no fear. You have to make that decision as a parent and put the power back in your hands, not theirs.
Wow. For parents that are frustrated, regardless of where they might live in the country, they're frustrated, they're ready to pull their hair out, they've just reached their wits' end. What would you suggest to them, and where would you point them to?
I would definitely, if there's no other educational environments, like you're talking about Delaware, right? Delaware doesn't have, you know, options as much as you would like it to have, right? That's something that you guys can definitely help parents fight for. But in the meantime, I would look into your closest networks, like your family, your church. See if people are willing to co-homeschool with you until you figure out what's happening. Because what you're doing, by sending your kid into that harmful environment, it will forever change them. And I know this firsthand because I work with children of all ages, just teaching their parents advocacy, teaching them advocacy. And I'm talking about from nursery all the way to into college. Things that happen in their time in school impacts their whole entire life. I have college students that are still talking about the trauma that they experienced all throughout school and how they're still experiencing some things because it triggers their thought about it, right? And so, you don't want that environment to forever change your kid, because I guarantee you government's not going to come and say, oh, we're sorry, we messed up your kid and now let's help you raise them. And, that's not going to happen. As a matter of fact, they'll deny. So it's your responsibility as a parent to look for those red flags, to see those warning signs and take heed to them and sacrifice whatever you have to make sure that your child is okay. This is not about making concessions for with your kid. You have to protect your child. That's a gift to you, right? And you get one chance to raise them and they get one chance to grow up. And so I say do whatever it takes. Find out if the private schools have financial assistance available. If that's something that you can afford, definitely look at that environment. See if that's where your kid can thrive at. Ask them if you can, sit there for a day, do a tour, do that, right? If you have some charter schools that are good functioning charter schools, and I'm not telling you to put your kid in another bad environment. You don't want to just pull them out and put them in a bad environment. You need to make an informed decision wherever they're at. If you have some good working charter schools in your area, check those out, see if you can go on a tour, find out what programs they offer. Just search high and low for your child, for the best option. If you can't homeschool, just do that. I mean, I am admonishing you to see this as an urgent situation and know what your role and responsibility is. This is your child, the government, not the government's. The government cannot have our children. And so this is a call to action. And we had to take up arms in a way that, we connect arms to and say, hey, these are our children. You can't have them. And we will fight you for our kids. And can I add a story in on that, a Bible story? So when Lot found out when Abraham found out that Lot had gotten taken away from him, he didn't look around for anybody. Abraham went and got 318 of his trained brethren. He went and got Lot out. Even if him and Lot didn't get along all the time, whatever, that was still his, his responsibility. He went and got Lot out, the women and the children and everyone else that was standing with them. And no questions had to be asked. He knew what he had to do. And so today I say, I admonish you, my 318 or more brethren, to go and get your kids into a safe, protected environment for their livelihood and well-being.
It's amazing that you would bring that up. While you're saying that, I was thinking of Gideon.
Oh yeah.
And Gideon said, "Well, I got these guys and these guys and these guys." God said, "Nah, too many."
Right.
We look at him and say, "Excuse me," now you got too many, and then next time you still got too many. Take them down there to the stream, and we'll put them to the test. Yeah, those 300 will do. So it's 300. I'm
300.
I'm up against all these thousands and thousands. 300. But what we shall slay 1,000 with our left, 10,000 with our right.
Right.
And the other thing is, going back to those divine principles where we are admonished, train up a child in the way he should go. It doesn't say in the word, well, if you feel like it, or if you're up to it, or if all the circumstances are right, then you can train them up. No, regardless, train up a child in the way he should go. And when he is old, he just won't depart from it. Period.
Right.
Bottom line. So don't you think, Christina, or you already said it, we're on a divine mission. I believe that. Yeah. It's get up and move, get up and do it. And I was thinking of the Fram Oil commercial. You remember the Fram Oil commercial? The guy say, pay me now or pay me later. I've told people that if you want to keep them in the public school, you're going to pay.
Yeah.
If you take them out and put them in a Christian school or a good environment, a good school where they're going to learn, or homeschool them, you're going to pay. So either way, you're
going to pay.
It just depends. Who do you want to pay? And then someday we're all going to have to stand before God. And I guess one of those questions is, why didn't you raise your kids right?
Right.
That would be a thump on the head. And I don't know if he'll ask me that directly or however, but I think about it a lot. How do you get kids? So we are on a mission. Christina, wow. Time goes by when you're really absorbed. Wow.
Always.
Yes. Would you please come back again?
Of course I will. And for anyone that wants to find me, they can find me on Twitter too at Christina LAST3R, or on Facebook at Christina Laster. And I'm always willing to answer questions at any time, because somebody might have a question that pops up afterwards, and I'm always willing to come back and talk about this in more detail too. Thank you.
Wow. And even though the weather was bad, we did it, Christina. We did it.
Yes. Sorry about the lags and stuff. The wind's blowing really hard.
That's no fault of yours. I sure do appreciate you taking the time. And please, we talked about it before we went on the air, but the door stands open. You just you got my phone number, email, all that good stuff. You just holler at Espenlaub, and we'll make it happen.
All right, that's great. Let's do it.
All righty. You just throw the ball back in my court, and we'll do
it. I will.
All right. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you. Have a wonderful. God bless you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Wow. Now what Miss Christina was talking about is uh, happening all over the country. All over the country. We're on a mission. So whether you're going to homeschool your child, a good charter school, a good private school, Christian school, remember, they are our responsibility. Somebody's going to get a hold of their mind. What goes in here is most important. These eyes are the windows to the soul, and it's a very, very responsible position to be in to train up a child in the way he should go. I just trust and pray that we'll do it and we'll do it right. It's time to be called to action. It will be. It is. It's time. And so I thank you for spending the last hour with me and Miss Christina, a delightful guest. And we're going to have her back, and we're going to have her back more often because uh, she's out there. She's got the boots on the ground. She's doing what she says she's doing, and that's all there is to it. So if you need help, if you need to know where to go and who to contact, just email me, georgece@comcast.net. That's georgece@comcast.net. Let me put this up here so you can see it as soon as I can find myself. There it is. That's my email address. We need men and women that'll stand up. Don't worry about the repercussions. You're going to get them one way or another. From one side or the other, you're going to get the repercussions. You know, if you want to play football, you got to get out there in the middle of the field and play. And whatever else you're going to do, get out there and get in it because we're talking about our nation. If we lose our children, we lost the nation. Email me, georgece@comcast.net. For you that were watching by the way of YouTube tonight, that little subscribe thingy down there, hit that. Subscribe to the channel and the little bell that'll remind you when we go live next time. We'll put this up on the radio, the audio portion up on the radio. I thank you for tuning in tonight. And regardless of where you are, what time it is, if it's nighttime, have a great night. If it's already daytime, have a wonderful, wonderful day. But regardless of where you're at, what time it is, be kind one to another, love one another, take care of one another, and I trust that God will keep you right in the center of his hand. Thank you for tuning in. God bless you. See you later.